Hello guys, my name is Khan, and actually this video is the continuation of my last video which was about animated charts. Actually in this video what I will do, I will go through the code that I have created in my last video, and in this video I will create exactly the same dashboard which you can see on your screens. But the point here is that in this video I will show you guys that how you can create multiple tabs in main panel of R Shiny. So now if you not here in the main panel, you can see that I have three tabs. The first tab I named it results, and the second tab is stats. And in the stats tab I will be capturing a table, and my last tab, which is data, I will be showing the data segment, which will be linked with this my slider panel, slider input. So if I play it, you can see that my data is also will be changing, just like my graphs are getting changed. So other than creating tabs in this video, I will also talk about two very important functions that I will be also using in this video, which is render table. The render table I will be using to capture, so suppose if I want to print some data objects in my dashboard, like by data object mean like if you want to print a vector, matrix, or a data frame, then you can use a render table function to capture that data or that data object. Whereas in the stat objects, in that tab I will be using a function in R Shiny which is called as render print. So render print is a function that will be capturing any output of your of suppose your function you have used. So suppose if you used a function summary, the summary function, whatever output that summary function will produce, the render table will allow, the render print function will allow you to capture that output from that function. So the function not only just summary, maybe the table function, these are the very common functions that in R you can easily you can easily use in R. So I will close this thing, and now I will start creating a code for this dashboard. So I will just close this. So as I said that I will be continuing from my last code that I have created for animated slider inputs. So I just like to rename this code now. I will be calling it main panel tab, because in this video I will be trying to show how you can create tabs in main panel. Main panel tabs. So I will open it. I will maximize this code into the separate window. So as I said, this is the same code that I have created for my previous video, which is animated graph. So if I execute this code, as you can see that I have a graph here, and I also have some text input box here. But the point here, not here, is that there is no tabs here. But I want to create tabs here. That the first tab will be the result, the stats, and then my last tab will be data tab. So in order to do that, first what I will do, the main thing I have to make change in my user interface. I think before going about making changes, I will quickly go through what I have done in this code. So I have initially I'm telling that which libraries I will be using. Then I have set down my working directory in this code file. Then I imported a data from a CSV file, and I assigned that data into a data object named data. And actually this data which I will be using in this video is actually here in my folder. And actually this data is about each country employment rates. So I have US, UK, China, France, and I kept on recording that data from 2005 till 2018. As I said even in my last video that this data is hypothetical. I will go back to my code now, and after that I have created a user UI object where I will be capturing the user interface, and within the user interface I have given the title to my panel, which is animated chart, and then by using HTML function I tried to format it within the center of my dashboard by using these arguments, center, and then again in the end center/center. And then I like to be my sidebar layout position be on the right hand side. And after that I have printed that this dashboard is about slider input on my sidebar. And then I have created one object which is slider input, and the slider input will be having ID object here. And the important thing to note down here is that I'm saying animate is equal to true. So if I'm just quickly going through, but if you want to go into more details, you can go back to my previous video. And after that, I have created also a text input. But between my text input and slider input, I want to create a gap. So that's why I've used this function, the div style, and I have by mentioning 300, whatever you want to say, it will create a gap accordingly between your widgets that you have created. So if I execute it now, enter, you can see that the gap here is appearing between slider input and text input is because I have used this function div, and I have mentioned height is equal to 300 px, where if you want to reduce this you can use 200 or more than 300 if you want to increase the gap. And then after that I have in the main panel I have printed call those objects that I want to print. So I want to print a text output, a plot output, and again in the last text output. So now the thing is that after that in my Shiny server I have created some rendered text outputs for year, for remarks, and then I also have created a graph. So now I will start by doing changes in my main panel. As I said that I want 3 tabs in my main panel. So what I will do first, I will just copy, just cut this text which I will be using. Actually I will be using this thing again in my main panel, but for here I will just cut it, and I will just commenting it out, but I will use it again. So within the main panel, what I will do, as I said that I want to create tabs. So in order to create a tab, you have to mention there is a function in R Shiny which is tab set panel. So as I want this, I want a set of tabs, so therefore I will be using this function. And within this function, I have to mention that what's the type. The type is the tab because I want to create tabs. So that's why I'll be saying type is equal to, within that I'll be saying inverted commas and then tabs, and after that I will press comma, and then I will mention my first tab. So in order to mention my first tab, I will be stating tab panel. So this is the function, and within the tab panel I will mention my first tab name, which will be the which I want to call it as result, which you can call it whatever you want. And after that I will be creating my second tab. Again I will be using my or function tab panel. So tab panel, and within that I will be mentioning my second tab name, which will be stats, and after that I will press comma again. And the last thing is that the third tab that I want to create is want to name as data. So I will be clicking tab panel, and I will be naming it as data. So these are the tabs that I will be creating. So now let's see if I execute this code, how my dashboard will look like. Control A, enter. So you can see that I have my result tab, my stat tab, and my data tab. But the important thing to note here is that there is nothing appearing here because I am not calling the object that I have created. So first thing is that within the result tab, I want to put one text input which will be showing the year. Then I will be having a graph, animated graph, which will be linked with this slider input. And the last text output, which will be related to this remark text input. So in order to do that, I will just copy paste again my last code. But within the result tab, I will go to my tab panel where I have said result, and then I will set comma, and then I will call all the objects that I want to print. So I will be calling, I will just copy paste the thing that I have from my previous code that I have commented out before. I'll say Control X, and here I will be mentioning those. So now within the result tab, I will be printing a text output out year, which will be capturing the year number, and then I will be plotting the output, which will be which will show a bar graph, and each bar will be representing each country and how employment rate in that country for the given year. And then I will be text output will be showing my remark that I will be inputting in my text input box. So now let's see if I execute my code. Control A, Control Enter. Close it down first. So now you can see that I have my graph under my result, and now if I play it, you can see that my graph is also changing. I have one text input which is representing the year I am in, and if I enter any remark, hello, you can see that it's also get printed here. So I will close it down, and the next thing is that I want to introduce two new functions in this video too. So I want to introduce a render table and render print. So what render table will do? So render table is a function that will allow you to capture objects like vector, matrix, or a data frame. So if you will be mentioning any of these objects, it will get captured by the render table, and then it will allow you to print that data object into your dashboard. So I will go back and come into my Shiny server function, and within that, as you can see, this is all the code that I have created in my previous video. So if you want to go further into detail about this code, you can go back to my previous video, but now I will start showing you two new functions. So the first function I will be discussing is render table. So now in order to render the table, so first thing is that I will be creating an object, output object, and then dollar I will be calling is as out data, because it will be capturing our data object. So that's why I'm naming it as out_data. You can name it whatever you want. And then I will be assigning this object by using this arrow sign, and after that I will be using a render table function, which is a shiny function, and within that I'll be using. So now let's see, what I want to do is that I want to assign I want to create a vector. Suppose this is just, I'm giving an example. Suppose if I create a vector named dd and I will assign that vector by sequence. So that sequence will be from 1 to 10 and increasing by 1. So now let's see, if I execute this code, Control S, A, enter, you can see that there is nothing appear here because I haven't I haven't told R that I want to print this table which I have captured through render table in my main panel. Suppose if I want to print this vector in my data tab. So in order to do that, I will be saying here, coming here, and I will be saying table output, and within the table output I will be mentioning my output data object name. So this is my out underscore data. So I'm coming here, saying here. Now let's see if I execute this code, enter, and now if I go to my data tab, you can see that it have printed a vector from starting from 1 to 10, but I don't want to print a vector here. I want to print my data object, which is my data that I'm using for this video. So suppose now if I mention my data object data, and now if I execute this code, as you can see I have commented out the vector, so the vector will not be, this command will not be executed, it will be just used as a comment, and say Control All, Control Enter, and now if I go to my data, you can see this is the whole data I have used. So as you can see, by render table I am able to capture the data and a vector. In the same way you can also capture a matrix, and then you capture that matrix to a output object, and then you can print that output object in your dashboard. The other thing I want to do is that I also want to link my data with this slider input. Suppose I want to see only that data for the given country. So suppose if it's 2005, I want to see only 2005 data, and if it's become 2006, and then I want to see 2006 data. Just like my results, when I'm playing it, it's showing me the results according to the year. In the same way, I want my data object to be keeps on updating based on the year, and it will only show me the observation for the given year. So it's also very simple. What I will do, I will come here, I will enter these straight brackets, and then I will be saying data dollar, because within the data frame I have a variable year, and I'm saying if it's equal to input object data dollar year, comma, show me all. So after comma I'm not mentioning anything, so I'm saying mention or show me all the variable if when the year variable is equal to my input object year, which I'm getting this year object, if you guys remember, I'm getting from slider input. So now if I execute this code, Control A, enter, so you can see that my slider is currently at 2005, and if I go to my data, you can see the data I can see only the 2005 data. But suppose if I play it, you can see that my data keeps on updating, and my results in my result tab, my graphs are also updating, and both things are get linked with this slider input. And now, as you can see that how easily I have linked things in my data tab and result tab. And the next thing I want to tell you guys that how you can capture the results of your command, and then how you can print those results in your Shiny dashboard. So now what I will say that I want under my stats tab, I want to capture the results of a table, and then I want to print that table under my stat tab in our Shiny dashboard. So what is a table function? So if I go back to my main screen of our studio, so there is a very kind of a common function which is table. So if I say table, so and I want to create a two-way table, so I want to say data $year, comma data $country. If I enter, so it created a two-way table in which I, on my y-axis, it labeled China, France, UK, USA, whereas on my column side I have year variable, and within that it's showing me that how many times the frequency of the observation. So as you can see that there is one observation for China and for the year 2005. In the same way, I have one observation for France in 2005. But the point is, I want to show this table in my R Shiny. So how to do that? For that, I will be using a render print function. The render print will capture any output of a function that you will be using within that render print. So I will go back to my main code, and within that code I will be now using render print, and within the render print I will be creating an output object which will be output on $, and I'll be calling it as out_stats. And after that I'll be using brackets. Within that I also like to use curly brackets. So I will just like to add a command that render print will be capturing the output result of the command you entered here. So as I said that so the only thing that I have missed here is that I have to use a render print function. So I'm using render print. So this is a Shiny function. I will be using that. And as I mentioned here, as I commented here, the render print will be capturing the output result of the command you entered here. So suppose now if I entered a command table, and again I'll be using data object. Within the data object I'll be using this year variable, and the second object, because I want to create a two-way table, I want to create data $country. So now it will create a two-way table, and that two-way table will be get assigned to this object, my output object out_stat, because of the function that I'm using render print. And as I said that I want to print that table under my stats tab, so that's why where I mentioned my tab name stats, I will say comma, and then I will be saying I will be calling that object by using a bit different command name. So I will be using a function which will be named as vectim text output. So I'll be using this, and then I will be calling my object name, which will be out underscore stats. Save. If I execute my code now, Control A and Control Enter, and if I go to my stats, so now you can see that the table that I have constructed got printed here. And as you can see that this stats tab is not linked with my widgets. So if I do anything, if I play it, it's not getting updated accordingly, but you can easily also get link your table if you want with these widgets too. But my data tab and my result tab got linked with these widgets on my right hand side. So in the end, I will just give you a summary of what we have done in this video. We have discussed how you can create multiple tabs in MainPanel, and then we have discussed two very important functions in R Shiny. One was render table to capture any data object, vector, or a matrix that you want to print in your dashboard. And then we also discussed another very important function, which is render print, to print any output results of your function that if you use. And in this video we have used a table function, and then we have shown the output of that table function in our dashboard. Thank you for watching the video.